what I wanted to show you is how I tried to go beyond traditional prosopography, and how did I do it. I will present two moments of my research. The first part will be on the traditional method of traditional prosopography, and then in the second part I'll show you what I did to go beyond this more conventional way of analyzing a social group with basic databases. I was fortunate enough to have access to a very complete set of sources, and the main one, it's something marvelous. That it's a huge collection, a biographical dictionary that was written in 18th century Portugal by a monk in a monastery, in Alcobaça monastery, which is a monastery that is highly linked to cultural production. It's the monastery that was responsible for producing another biographical dictionary from the 18th century on Portuguese authors. That is still one of the main source for Portuguese literature and science in early modern in the early modern period, called Biblioteca Lusitana. And actually this set that I'm talking about, that we know for the general title of Memorial de Ministros, this was written at the same time, more or less at the same time, as the Biblioteca Lusitana. And funny enough, the author, the monk, kept his work from the knowledge of the author of Biblioteca Lusitana. So he didn't want to be known and to be included in Biblioteca Lusitana. So we ended up not knowing very much about the author. We only have his work. And this work was never published. It was kept in manuscript. He didn't finish, he didn't produce a final version. He died before he finished, and even transferred his work to another monk, who continued his work until the beginning of the 19th century. But what they produced was a huge and very complete, very rigorous work on each and every Portuguese judge that ever served the crown. At least was his ambition, from the beginning of the kingdom until the day before he was writing, because he kept receiving information from a very complete network of correspondents that sent him information from the villages where they worked or where they lived, from local archives, from memory, from recollections that they had, and they kept sending these lists and this information on judges. And this author, Frei Luís de São Bento, he compiled everything, and he even produced this kind of dictionary that I'm showing you. So, although it was not published, I mean, we have the manuscript, and we have tentative versions that he did. They are not the final ones, but they are really complete. And so what I did was to use this information. I had to use it because I have at least with this kind of dictionary, I had an identification of my body of work. I had the names, I had the places of birth, I have career paths for each judge. I just had to check if the work was thorough, and it was. I mean, what I did was I reached out to the other sources, common work on prosopographical on a prosopographical effort. I mean, we have to collect information on different sources that can give us answer on a given set of questions. So the easy part of working with the judges is that they really have a footprint in every archive, because they are closely working with the written paper, and also they at least in the Portuguese case, they enter a career, and so the career is recorded in official sources. So fortunately for me, I had the access to a set of different collections of documents on the national archives, but also on the Portuguese library, that deal not only with their careers, but also with the privileges that they received when they tried to achieve higher status, social status, like belonging to the Santo Officio, to the Inquisition, or belonging to the military orders. All this kind of research, of investigation that was done around the candidates. We have this information, and since it is being done in different times of their life course, we have snapshots of what they were doing and what they had done until that moment. And also, and this was because I have this kind of it's almost a fetish of working with sources and knowing that I have complete sets and complete series of information. And this was the moment where I calmed down and was really confident on the universe that I was creating, was when I found the records on these two that I mentioned here, leituras de bacharéis. It's the records of the exam that the magistrates had to perform to enter the judiciary with the crown. So with this complete set of examinations, I was sure about every university degree, people holding a university degree that wanted to enter the magistracy. So with this set, I could create a complete series of every candidate to the judiciary career. And so when I confronted this series with the Memorial de Ministros, I noticed that none of them was missing from the work of Frei Luís de São Bento. So Memorial de Ministros is a really thorough source, and sometimes it doesn't have information on a given step of the career, or is missing information or on the place of birth, but as long as we are defining a complete set of individuals, he was really thorough. And so the end result of this research was the creation of records on these numbers. So this was a work done only by myself, so it's an individual work, and sometimes at that time I thought it was normal. Nowadays, when I look back and I see these numbers, I think it's almost crazy how someone would work with such high number of individuals, but I wasn't happy with working with samples. I tried for my master thesis with a small sample of 600 and something, but I was not sure about what could I extract from that sample. So I really wanted to work with the whole set, and so the database that I produced had the maximum number. So the database had the information for every candidate, and then it will follow the career and the life of the ones who became magistrates. I also tried to gather information on the candidates that did not pursue the career because they were not admitted for exam, or they failed the exam. But sometimes they escape the archival footprints, and it's not so easy to follow them. But I tried, so I kept them in my database in order to be careful with them. And so this was the structure of this first conventional database. And I tried to make it as complex and sophisticated as possible. I have to mention also that the greatest influence for this work was Professor António Espanha, with whom I had the privilege to work since my history degree, and he was also my director for my master thesis. And so he was the first person who talked to me about the necessity to go beyond traditional prosopographies. And so when I created this structure, I always had in mind what Espanha told us about what should a new prosopography be careful with, because traditional prosopography tends to work mainly with social background, geographical origin, career path, and so on. But España always mentioned the other side, the side of networks, the interconnectedness of these agents, the access to privileges, the circles where they belong. So in my database, I tried to create all these these tables, as we call them in Microsoft Access, that were able to keep the information on different aspects that are not only related with professional work and judicial work. and also I also had some attention. I didn't know what to do with this, but I had this also this table on geography. It is also an influence of España, because at the time that I started working on my master, at the ICS, the center, the research center where España was working and where I was an assistant researcher, he had two main projects going on. One on Portuguese jurists who wrote books, and another one on Portuguese territory. I mean on the organization of the Portuguese early modern Portuguese territory. All the different levels of administration, from the local level to provincial level. And so this importance of the territory and how we could interact with these persons always seemed to me important. So from the first stages, I always had this information structured in a way that I could treat it in the future But at the time, when I was doing this research for my PhD, I didn't have the right tools to do it. I only had basic geographic information system that only allowed me to paint a map with very general distribution patterns and so on. But I mean the care for this kind of aspect was already there. And so this is common, and I mean this is a traditional record. I will not lose many time with this because this is what everybody knows how to do it. So I tried to make it easy for me to navigate and to gather all kinds of information, all sorts of data, from biography to the university career, the traditional observation, which is for everything else, family, the exam for entry, the career, and so on. So very common kind of database. But also, since I had this geographical interest, I could also enter the information from different entry points. So in the previous one, we could see information organized by judge, by individual, but I could also organize the same information on a different way from the posts that were served by these judges from jurisdiction. And then if I chose a given jurisdiction, I would have the complete list of offices of judges that served there. But and then I forgot to mention though, so that was for my PhD, and then for the most recent postdoctoral position that I had, I did a similar thing, but I moved on my chronology, and so I studied the 19th and early 20th century. So I produced a different another database, but on the judges that served in the constitutional period. And then so I had two databases at this moment, and so I decided to what to do with this and go beyond the prosopography, and so I did some kind of a Copernican revolution, where the geographical aspect of my data gained the center stage, and for this I had I learned about an online platform called Nodegoat, and I used Nodegoat to explore my data in a different way. For example, what we have here, it's a map that shows the maximum extension of the Portuguese overseas judiciary in this long durée of the early modern period. Not all these points existed at the same time. They are not always simultaneous. This is the maximum extension. I mean, every point in the map that at some point received a judge sent by the Crown and regularly nominated by the Crown. And the size of the ball shows the number of judges that existed at the same time. So we see the main. I mean, I don't. In this, I don't signal the Portuguese side, because otherwise it would be only lots of balls. But for the overseas, we can see that Bahia, Goa in India, Luanda, and Rio de Janeiro are the main hubs of this apparatus. And so I was talking Nodegoat. Nodegoat was a very happy meeting that I had, because Nodegoat promised to do what I was missing from my conventional access database. Nodegoat is developed in Holland and in the Netherlands, and they have a very close relation with historical research, and they promise to treat data from a very geographical point of view, but also from a network point of view. And I thought it was what I was missing from my experience with Microsoft Access. I tried to do something with geography and with networks, but I always had to transfer my data to different software and perform only for this. I mean, for geography, I did this, and for networks, I did another thing. But the Nodegoat can do everything with the same set of networks, so of data. So it was really interesting. I had the structure configuration of my data was highly compatible with the demands of Nodegoat. I mean, as you saw, the structure I showed you was already rather deconstructed. I mean, the data was almost reduced to his smaller pieces like atoms, so it was really easy to transfer it to Nodegoat without repetitions and all this kind of clutter that sometimes are generated when you do this kind of transfers. And also Nodegoat showed me was very powerful in this kind of representation of what I was mostly interested. It is on this kind of circulation networks. This is what really guided me towards Nodegoat, because what I wanted to do at that moment was to study how these agents circulated in the Portuguese empire, because I knew there was this kind of circulation, but always from an empirical point of view. I mean, from reading different biographies, I could see that they were all over the place, and sometimes they repeated some paths that I was already seen in a different biography. But it's always very, very empirical. I wanted to see how it would translate into a map, and Nodegoat, by collecting all the information that I had, and by inputting all this georeferential information on the jurisdictions, it could then plot a map, a circulation map, which I will be showing you in a couple of minutes. And Nodegoat always is also a very, very powerful showing time, which is a very important thing for historians, because it's not only a static map or static graph. You can, since you are dealing with dates, Nodegoat can introduce this kind of change in time, and so you can see a dynamic map and a dynamic graph that has an evolution with time, and you can set the period that you want to see, and Nodegoat shows you how things happen in that period, if the data is good, of course. And my data, fortunately, was really, really good for this for this aspect, because I always had dates and I always had places. And so the aspect of visualization is what it was really powerful with Nodegoat, and that it was really what I wanted to do. So I had to make this transition from Microsoft Access to Nodegoat. I had, this was my main scare, was the import of data. So it's always a very stressful moment where you try to import, and then there's just a field in the record that it's not, or has a very strange character, and everything else goes wrong. You have to start the process again. But as soon as I managed to import my data, which was I mean, a couple of days after starting this process, it is really rewarding to see your data in this new platform. I had to make some normalization of these two autonomous data sets that I mentioned. I mean, for the early modern, for the modern period, but they were built more or less in the same way. It was always me who did it, so there was not this normal problems when you have several people working on data. Things get rather difficult because sometimes people don't describe everything the same way. But when you are working alone, this kind of things tends to be less important. And I had to produce what the people from Nodegoat always mention as the gazetteer, which is a very funny name because it gives you this kind of early modern feel now. And you know, you have a gazetteer. I had to check on the dictionary what it was, but it's really useful when you have this kind of gazetteer, which is a given set of places, or a given set of posts, and you can describe them, and then it will be very useful to give strength to your data structure, because you know that you have a very correct, a very checked list of places, every possible place, and you know that you can't go wrong if you double check it. And so I did my first attempts of structure visualization, which I'll be going to show you right now, and also some exploratory, I'll call it exploratory social networks, because I mean, I haven't invested much time on this aspect yet, but it seems promising. So that's why I brought it here. So the data model for Nodegoat, it's simpler than in Access, because the structure is not, Nodegoat is not a traditional relational database. The logic, it's different. So you don't have to have all these kind of tables. You have to build a very strong data model in the platform. But as you can see, it's rather simpler than it was in Microsoft Access. What I have is a table for judges, a table for jurisdiction, the geographical places, of course, and then a table that produces this kind of affiliations, which is what I'll be using for the social network side of the database. So when I first saw this kind of visualization, I almost had tears in my eyes, because suddenly what I was able to see was the materialization of what I wanted to represent. I mean, what I'm showing you, it's the map of circulation of judges in the early modern period. So every purple dot, it's a jurisdiction. This is looping, right? and every blue dot, it's places of birth. That's why we have someone here in Spain, in Madrid, and there will be someone showing also in Northern Europe. I mean, there was no Portuguese jurisdiction over there. There were judges that were born in Germany and Denmark and Spain and Italy also. But we should focus on the purple dots and the lines that connect them, and also the small things that are moving inside those lines. So this is for the whole period, of course, and then this is just a snapshot of what happened in the early modern period. So this is how the circulation of colonial judges looked like if we saw it from a bird's eye view in the longue durée. You can see this main connection between Portugal and Brazil, very, very active, very strong. Also between Portugal and the islands in the middle Atlantic, because they always worked as a point of passage of trying these judges that will be serving in the overseas. And also we can see other kind of interesting information. For instance, the fact that the judges that they go from mainland Portugal to India, and then they return to mainland Portugal. They rarely go from India to other places in the Portuguese Empire, because what happened is that the state of India had had a higher ranking in the colonial territories. So since this judiciary career, the judges would always be promoted to a more important position. From India, you could only be promoted to mainland Portugal. If you went to Brazil, you will not be promoted. So that's why this kind of structure of circulation was settled, and we can see it in this graph. What is also interesting is to see how things change when Brazil becomes independent and when the Portuguese Empire has to be restructured. So what we will see in the next slide, it's the change in the 19th century. And what you see, it's a very different circulation pattern, because what happens in the 19th century is that the colonial service becomes independent from mainland judicial service, whereas in the early modern period, places in the overseas, posts in the overseas could be served after serving in mainland Portugal, and then you could return to mainland Portugal after serving in the overseas. In the 19th century, it will be completely different. There will be an overseas career, and when you served for a given amount of time, normally 12 years, you could apply for a place in mainland Portugal. So what you see, it's a circulation in the different colonial territories before ascending to places in Portugal, and always, of course, this situation of the Atlantic islands, which was normally a stepping place when you arrived to the higher ranking courts. So this is what I wanted to see with my data, and Nodegoat really helped and showed really power in producing this kind of graphs. Just to finish, because I think yeah, I have 14. I'm talking for 14 minutes, so just to show you some of these kind of affiliation networks, I'm not so that happy and proud about this, so I'll mention it just to show you what Nodegoat can do, but probably it's my fault. I mean, or probably it's also the fault of my data. I still don't have data enough to produce good affiliation networks, but I have some data that can be used. So that's what I brought here. This data that I'll be showing you, it's mainly based on early 19th century Portuguese judges in the period of the Napoleonic invasions, and afterwards on the civil war that followed the constitutional revolution in Portugal. I mean, the civil war between the royalists and the constitutional parties, and which is a very interesting period for the study of the judiciary, because for the first time we can see judges taking sides, and you can identify judges on either side of the war, and since there was a really there was an alternation of power, and so there were prosecutions of the ones that were not in power, and so and this produced data, so we can have lots of information of affiliation of these judges to different sides of the conflict. And so I tried to collect all the information available, and with Nodegoat it is possible to produce this kind of networks. I mean, what I have here, it's very basic, but it's judges that belong, that were part of the constitutional the parliament, that were also members of the preparatory junta, of course. There were members of the Freemasonry, which had a very important role in the revolution, but also judges, for instance, that were member of the academic battalion that was formed in 1826, for example. So what I did was to gather information of this affiliation of judges to different institutions or military bodies, etc., and then try to map them. You can see, for instance, these judges here. They were both in the constitutional parliament and also Freemasons. So we have this kind of complex mapping. So this is. But what is interesting, I'm not showing you this here because this is a very short period, but what Nodegoat allows you, it's to introduce a chronological dimension to these graphs, and you can see how these networks changed with time. Probably if you could see, for instance, if someone changed allegiance from one side to the other, you could see this represented in time in this kind of graphs. What I'm showing you here is just a static graph, because as I told you, this data is not complete, and this data is rather exploratory. So I just wanted to see how it showed and how it looked, but still I have lots of work to do in this side of the database, of the network, but it's not a Nodegoat's fault. It's my fault, of course. And so yeah, this is what I wanted to show you, and now I'll be very happy to answer your questions and any doubts that you have. I hope I can answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very